We acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land.
As one of the oldest living cultures on Earth, we celebrate their age-old connections to country, along with the knowledge, determination, patience, and generosity of all First Nations people, past and present.
This is Aboriginal land.
Hi, I'm Lucille McCart.
And I'm Chantelle Otten. We're from Bumble, and this is Give Me a Buzz.
From first dates to heartbreak, we can all relate to the ups and downs of modern dating and relationships.
And we're here to give you the inspiration, education, and motivation to navigate any dating fairy tale or dilemma you may find yourself in.
Well, hello. We are welcomed today by Jackie O and her decades-long bestie, Jemma O'Neill. Welcome, ladies.
Welcome. Hi. How are you?
You absolutely all would have heard of Jackie on the Queen of Breakfast Radio, I think they call her.
What a title. Where's your crown? You can bring it in today.
I need to buy a crown.
Yeah,
we should
get you one.
Yeah, we're going to gift you one.
And Jemma has had her own very fascinating career. We were just talking about that earlier before we came in here. And they've launched their own business called Besties and their own podcast called Her Best Life.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here today. We're so excited.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for inviting
We're excited.
us. Yeah.
Got all the besties in the room.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So we open every podcast episode with some questions. Yes. For every guest, we ask them, what is your opening move in the day?
Okay.
Try your best.
I usually give them something about my day that they can work with, you know. So I try and pick something that might be of interest to someone or something, you know, not your standard. So I reach out, usually just say, hey, how's your day going? I've just, you know, come from, I don't know, I tell you what men respond to is ice baths.
Oh, my God.
So if you say, I've just come from an ice bath and sauna, boom, they're in. You know?
Especially if your radius is eastern suburbs.
Yes, it's true. That actually, I should clarify that. It probably works more so in certain areas.
Yeah.
Or just anything really, but try and have a little bit of fun and give them something where they can at least, you know, respond off the back of some information you've given.
Yeah, I probably take the same approach. Although the other thing that I have been doing up until recently is that I always try and like be self-deprecating and try and be funny.
Yeah.
But then I've recently learned from our therapist, we see the same therapist, by the way. She told me that that's me trying too hard to make them like me. So I've now just cancelled that and I'm now taking Jackie's approach.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that. I think it's good advice because I think we tend to have very like self-deprecating humour, but when you're dating, you're kind of meant to be like in your power, like bigging yourself up a little bit, you know? So if you open a conversation with like cracking a joke about yourself, you know, you want to be like, well, I'm amazing. You know, you want to project that kind of energy, you know, like.
Yeah, so like your work, you know. I agree with that, definitely. And I just think like, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm texting, I've got a back and forth going with a guy that I don't really care that much about, I'll just shoot off all this like send.
Yes.
And then the guy I really care about, I'm like, oh, maybe ChatGPT can better this for me. Yeah. And I always find like the conversation with the guy I don't care about is way better than the one you're overanalyzing and trying to, you know, be witty or funny. And I just think ditch that, just shoot off a message, just say whatever comes to mind, don't overanalyze it, you know, just be who you are.
What you're doing in that first example is you're just being yourself.
Exactly.
You know? And so when you think, if you are writing a notes app draft, it's a red flag.
It actually is. I think you're right. That should be your first sign that if you're going to drafts or notes, we have a problem.
What's happening?
Yeah. I've got a whole graveyard of notes app messages in my notes app, and I just, if I reflect on my dating life, every time I've ever found myself doing that, it's been
the terrible
for
ones.
a situation I should not have been in.
Yes.
I
think
voice
that's
note.
excellent
I think a voice
advice.
note
Shanti's a big fan of a voice note.
Well, I hate voice notes, and I'm only just. I know. Me who talks for a living.
Is that why? Are you just sick of talking by the end of the day?
No, it's just I don't know. I feel like, oh my God, I sound like I don't think I sound like such a loser. Every time I listen to it back, I'm like, no, that's
I don't want to hear you say that about yourself.
I know.
The idea
Such a
of you being
terrible
self-conscious
thought.
about how you sound in a voice note is so funny to me.
No, I know, because they've heard my voice a million times. It's just me. I've got to get over that, you know?
I think it's also because you stress about redoing it. Like you're like, oh, that didn't sound good enough. I should do it again.
And it never sounds good when you redo it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I guess you have a very keen ear for.
I think I do. Maybe that's what it is that I'm
You're holding yourself to a very high standard.
Yes, that's
But
probably
you like
it.
getting the voice note.
I love the
You
voice
like getting-
note.
Yeah.
You can tell a lot from a voice note.
Yeah,
a lot.
100%.
Yeah.
Totally. It's one of those things that we often recommend doing voice notes or a phone call or a video call before a first date, because you just get so much information about
You
someone that
do.
way
Yeah.
that you don't get over text.
Absolutely. Yeah. You can waste a lot of time and then, suddenly you speak to them and you're like, oh, no.
Damn it.
Yeah. This isn't what I thought.
You're like, oh, you sound deranged.
yeah, you can tell there's just
Yeah.
something off, you know.
I've had that happen before in a situation where I sat down on a date and he started talking and I was like, oh, I've got you all wrong. I thought you
Yes.
were joking about half the things you said. And now that I'm hearing your tone, you're serious and I don't like you.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
could have not shaved my
Wasted-
legs
yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Or anything else.
Or
I mean, let's go on to the next question. What is the worst dating advice you've ever received?
Yeah, we want to know the worst dating advice that you've got, because there's a lot of bad advice floating around out there.
Oh, like wear a dress because
Yes,
it's
I was just
feminine.
about to say the same thing.
Yeah, wearing like you've got to come across as feminine.
Yeah.
Don't swear, don't do this. It's almost like I think the worst advice is really just trying to portray something you think they want
Yes.
as opposed to what you really are. And I've gotten into long-term relationships starting off that way and it hasn't ended well for that
Yeah.
very reason. So I think that's probably the worst dating advice you could ever receive.
Yeah, I agree, because I think that there's so many patterns that people get in where you, like there used to be an old saying that you spend the first 3 months of dating someone pretending to be
Yes.
someone and then
heard
the
that.
next 6 months telling them who you actually are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's a year of your life wasted.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's exactly right.
Oh,
exactly.
gosh. And it depends how fast you move in relation. Gosh,
Yeah.
I'd probably end up in a very serious. I got married once after 11 months. And then when I got with Dill, I just moved straight into his place like a week after.
A week after.
Chantelle's like writing
that
this
must have
down.
been a good couple of days.
I've had a few. I've had a few lives, and I think.
Do you think you move fast, or do you think people are just like, I will lock this woman down?
Yeah, I think it's the
immediately?
second option. No, I like you're either obsessed with me or it's not happening. I like the ones that get a little crazy.
Yeah, see,
I like the crazy.
we say up front that this is not a good thing to strive for, but we love bombing.
Yeah,
because
we love being love bombed.
Bring it.
Yeah, it's the
Tell
best
me how
feeling.
great I am.
Yeah.
Tell me how great I am. That's why it works.
Yeah,
why it
that's
works.
exactly
Yeah.
why.
Yeah.
Hence why we both have a therapist we now see to undo all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are dating at the moment. Let's kick off the start of the potty with that. You're both actively dating right now.
Yes.
How's that going? Bit of a pause there.
It's interesting because we're probably both at the same point. Like we've both landed at the same point, and we tend to do this a lot. We find we correlate timing wise, but we've both spent the last few years dating and in and out of dating, or maybe had some, relationships for a little while. But then in the last kind of month, we've both come to the place where we're going to take a break. And we openly talk about this on our podcast, which we do with Bumble because we love Bumble and what it's about. But we also believe that sometimes you get dating burnout.
Absolutely.
And so when you have dating burnout, it's really important to stop for a little while and have a break. And that's where we're both kind of at the moment. So I wouldn't say we're not dating, but I'd say we're not seeking it out.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's
this is
right.
probably one of the most common questions that we get is if I'm feeling fatigued, if I'm not having fun, what do I do? And the simplest answer is have a break.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
really
because
important.
it's meant to be fun.
Yeah.
Meeting new people, having fun experiences, getting good stories. That's what it's meant to be about.
Yeah.
And you can burn yourself out
Yeah.
if you are taking it too seriously, or
Yeah.
it's stopped becoming fun, or you're trying to what I identify with is when I'm trying to fit dating in to a busy, like if I've got a really big work schedule for a couple of weeks and I'm traveling and I have to see friends and I'm trying to squeeze in dates because I'm like, well, I should be dating. That's when I find myself getting overwhelmed. And so I'm like, it's okay if it takes a backseat for a couple of weeks. And then you get back into it. You know, you just have to do what's right for you and what is going to make you feel good about it.
That's right. It does need to be enjoyable. Otherwise, I just think like your energy going into that date is off for a start. And I wouldn't want that. You know, I think it should be fun, and I don't think having a break is probably. I would say I would encourage that if you are feeling like you're getting that burnout, because we definitely do that.
Like doing a job like what you do.
Yeah.
If you're exhausted, if you're burnt out, you're going to show up to an interview or something like that and not get. You're not going to
get the most out of it,
because you're bringing that energy, and it goes. That's the same for everything, and like dating's no exception to that.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
So then you go date your girlfriends and you date yourself.
Yes.
I think that's what we do for the month. We love a little cozy night in. We love a fake tan and housewives night. It's my favourite date night with you.
So you both have children.
Yes.
You've had your kids. Assuming not looking for any more.
I'd actually love to have more.
You would?
Yeah. I'm 41, so I'm not sure how that will go yet. But
I'd count it out. Yeah. I'm interested to know if dating, once you've had like a big relationship that's you've had kids with, has that changed what you're looking for in a partner? Like now that you aren't necessarily looking to start a family with someone, are you having more flings?
Yeah, definitely.
Are your options open more?
Yeah, I think because now you can really create a different kind of relationship. That relationship doesn't have to tick all the boxes of, will he make a good father? Is he reliable? What kind of job does he have? How well do we get on? There's all these boxes, you know, because you're hoping that you'll start a family together. And so you're thinking about what that looks like. And that always involves living together, raising a family, you know, if that's where you want to go with it. But now, because I can only speak for myself because my situation's different to Jemma, obviously not wanting children anymore. I now am open to it. Who knows what that looks like? That person could live interstate. You know, that's okay with me now because I like my freedom. I like to be with my girlfriends. I like to go on holidays with my friends. And it doesn't have to be what it used to be anymore. There's a lot more freedom around what that might look like. And so I think that part is really exciting in a way because it doesn't have to kind of fit into a box anymore.
That could be the perfect arrangement, having someone interstate.
Once
a fortnight.
It certainly opens up my radius spread.
I think that's so much fun.
Way more options.
Yeah.
I think that it's a story we hear a lot from women. It's not necessarily an age thing, but at any age when they get out of their like big relationship, often when they've had their kids, that they're like, I'm dating like I'm 18 again.
Yeah.
You know? And they have this like resurgence of like, I thought that part of my life was done and now I'm just like having more fun and have a better attitude about this than someone in their late 20s, early 30s who is feeling like I have to find the one.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
I'd say that I'm probably slightly different, not because of the keenness to, if possibly, have another baby if that happens, but I think when I first came out of my my marriage, was that exactly what you just said, Lucille. Like I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm like 20 and I have this like all these options and I felt like I wanted to just go out and have fun.
Yeah.
And I did that for a period of time. But now that I would really like to have a loving relationship again, I almost feel like I'm a harder critic than I was before I met my husband. And I think because now I feel like, well, I've got 2 kids and the 3 of us are a tight unit. And if you want to be part of this, you are going to be really scrutinized. And I know that sounds probably bad, but for me, I'm already happy. So I feel quite content. So if you're going to come into that environment, you've got to be pretty damn amazing.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're creating you have to keep your safe space safe, right? So why would you let any Joe Blow into that space? 100%.
And I think when you really want to kind of have kids and you might be reaching a certain age, like late 20s, early 30s, I think there's a pressure on you to find that person and you may end up settling with someone that maybe isn't quite right. Whereas when you've come out of that big relationship where you've had the family, it's like, well, there's no rush anymore. I'm not gonna walk into something that isn't really great for both of us. You know, it doesn't. There's no rush on it, so I think it gives you can be a lot pickier. Actually,
Yes.
you really can.
That's
It's
what
like
it is.
when you that time pressure, that clock ticking element is gone.
Yeah.
It opens up like a lot
It's
more
like,
opportunities.
just don't need to settle down, don't need to find anyone until that really right person comes along.
It makes me wonder
What's the
if you
caliber of
think-
people out there? That's what I want to know.
But it makes me wonder if like younger women would like have a better attitude about it. Well, not a better attitude, but if they would feel better about it, if they were thinking about, I actually only need to think about my partner for the next 10 years, like rather than thinking
The rest of my life.
my partner I choose at 30 is going to be my partner for the next 40 years.
Yeah.
Like maybe if the criteria is just, can I raise a young family with them
Yeah.
and see what happens after?
Yeah.
You know?
Or even if you're feeling like the clock's ticking, asking yourself the question of, am I with this person because I genuinely want to grow old with them? Or am I with them because I feel like the pressure? And if it is the latter, then you have to remind yourself that you then need to think, well, in 10 years' time, I may have to then split up from this person because my heart's not in it. And my heart, if I'm honest, wasn't in it from the very beginning.
Yeah.
So that child that I so desperately wanted, I will now have to give up 50% of the time.
Yeah.
And I know like that's the reality that sometimes when women go into relationships, when they're not really invested in it and they're doing it because it's what they're meant to do, or they feel that
And they're worried that
pressure.
if they let this one go, there might not be anyone else out there. And so
my
it's the
God.
panic
Yeah.
that they hold on to a relationship that might not be necessarily right for them.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, getting married, you know, all of that, buying a house, it feels like a big decision. But ultimately, the most important decision you'll ever make in your life is who you have kids with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so
Choose wisely.
It's like, and I don't have kids, I don't even have a boyfriend, but what I see from like all the relationships I've observed in my life is you need to be putting it through that filter of, is this someone that I would trust as a single parent without me? What if something
Yes.
happens?
Yes.
Like, and not even in the case of a divorce, like what if something happens to me?
Yeah.
You know?
You don't think about that at the time,
Yeah.
though.
I so you know I'm a therapist.
Yes.
I give the hard word to all my like female patients who are jumping out of good relationships because their partner's not ready for kids, and they're like, I'm ready for kids. Their ovaries start screaming.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just look into the freezing of the eggs option
Yeah.
first as just like a security blanket if you can afford it. Obviously, you know, it is expensive, but I've seen so many rush towards these really unhealthy love bombing relationships that
Yeah.
have gone absolutely haywire
Yeah.
just because they've wanted to have children.
Yes, I think that's really good advice, that if you can afford to, freezing your eggs and making sure that who you start that family with is the
Good
right
person.
relationship. You don't want to end up having a family with someone who's a narcissist, you know, because that can make your life hell later on down
Yeah.
the track,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
How your kids are different ages.
Yeah.
How do you approach talking to them about your dating life, and at what point have you ever introduced them to someone? What's your kind of threshold for when you would do that?
Yeah, I've never introduced my kids to anyone, but I also haven't had anyone yet that I felt like that's
You
the
would
point.
want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I also haven't really spoken to my kids about dating until recently because I thought I don't want to hide this from them, and I want them to know that there's no shame in searching for love, you know? So I actually spoke to them about it recently, and I said to them I was going on a date. And they were so fascinated. I've got 2 boys, and they were so fascinated. They were like, "Mum, what are you going to wear?" and so I got
cute.
them involved. Like I got
Yes.
dresses out and outfits out, and they were like, "Wear that one." The thing that was quite fascinating was they said, my 11-year-old said, "Mum, I've got some advice for you." And I said, "Oh, okay." And he said, "I've heard that guys really like it if you give them lots of compliments. So when you're on the date,
Bless,
give
great
him lots
advice.
of compliments." And I thought, bless him. But then at the same time, because I'm like a bit of a fierce feminist, I was like, well, no, he can give me compliments. I was like,
Yeah.
trying to
Did you
at the same
educate your
time.
son on that?
Yes,
You're
I
like,
did.
I'll wait for the
Yes.
compliment first,
Yeah.
and then I might give him a compliment.
Yeah, so
Yes.
I've just recently started talking to them about it, but no, I haven't introduced them to anyone. You're much better with Kitty, but Kitty's like a few
she's
years older.
Yeah.
you know, and Kitty, even though she's about to turn 14, she always seems 2 years older than what she is.
Yeah.
And I try not to involve her in too much of it. But if I think there's like a good date coming
Yeah.
up, I give her the profile,
Oh,
and
yeah.
she is so good at picking people.
A
Like
14-year-old
she's-
girl is a harsh critic.
She's
as
a
well.
harsh critic, and the things she'll point out, I'll be like, but that's not that really.
You're like, I didn't even
and
notice
she's
that.
like, no, Mum, no. Anyone who does that or wears that, and I'm like, oh my God, she's brutal. But hey, I'm not in a relationship, so she must be right on it.
That's actually
Haven't met
like a
him yet.
great filter.
Yeah.
Like, does a 14-year-old girl think they're cool?
Yeah, I know.
Do either of you travel internationally
Yeah, a
quite
lot.
often? Do you
Yeah.
ever like set your Bumble profile to the
Yes,
internationally?
I have done that.
How did you
haven't
go
done
with that? I think dating internationally is so
You do
fun.
that
Yeah.
when we're in Europe.
No, not in Europe. It was in Bali. And then what I realized, because I'd never been to Bali before, so I had it set on the plane, and I was like, oh my God, because it was around New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
Wow.
The period of time when every tradie in Australia goes to Bali.
Yes.
And I was like, my God, there's so many guys on Bumble. It's incredible. And I was so excited. And then when I landed there, I realized, oh no, okay, I don't need it in Bali. Like they're just
They're
everywhere.
everywhere. Yeah.
Everywhere. So that's kind of
Yeah.
like the only time I've ever really said it. But I think
That's
it's,
funny.
fun.
Yeah,
to,
Bali probably isn't where you need
Bali's
to.
not where you need to do it. Let
But
me
we've
tell
got
you.
a few girls' trips coming up, so we should do that.
Oh my God, do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It would be so
I've been
much
on some
fun.
fantastic dates, like on
Have you?
holiday. Yes, because the thing that is so unique about it is you're really just doing it to meet a new person and have fun. Like there's no, like the conversation is interesting because you're not doing the whole like, how many siblings do you have? It's like, what? It's like,
We're here
you're
for
not trying to
1
be
week.
anyone else. You're just
Yeah,
really
you know
yourself.
what it is. Yeah.
Because there's no sort of like, oh, are we going to go on a second,
No,
third, fourth
exactly.
date?
It's different.
You might see them like once or twice, but you can just kind of be yourself, or you can like make up a whole different
be someone
personality.
Be someone else. Have an
And
alter
just
ego.
like, you know, have fun.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
actually, I do recommend.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I love that. Okay, so when we talk about dating, do we have any ultimate deal breakers?
So many.
Should we
So
start a
many.
list?
We can
Yeah.
start the list.
Okay.
Do you mean on the actual date?
or the profile?
Or the profile.
Or we can do both.
Let's
Yeah.
start with the profile, Jem.
Yeah.
Here we go. Gym, anything in the gym
Yeah.
is out for us. Too many tops off pictures, out.
Too many.
Yeah.
So one's
One's
okay.
okay.
One is for Jemma, it's not.
No.
For me, it's okay.
But do
Yeah.
they have to be at the beach?
But they'd have to be doing an activity,
Yeah.
not just here, look at my body.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm with you.
I'm like none. If they've got one, they're out for me.
But I do date a sports person. So
Yeah.
I have to go.
Yeah, I feel like you might. I
Depends
just
on what
feel
they do.
like it really depends on what they're doing in the photograph. But so the gym and too much body, I think. Oh God, there's so many, isn't there? You know what I hate is when they say, "Oh, I just like to take the piss out of you." So if you've got a good sense of humor,
Huge red flag.
huge red flag.
Huge red flag. Or when
Yeah.
they're like, I'm looking for someone that doesn't take themselves too seriously.
Exactly.
Which
yeah.
means I'm going to be a dick to
I'm
you.
going to
and,
be a dick and
you
don't
have to
you
laugh
get
about it.
offended.
Yeah.
Like it's your problem. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's a narcissist probably
Yeah.
right there.
report. No, I'm joking.
Yeah. Or what is, there's so many that we can spot, right?
What
Like
about on a date? Like, what about when you're
on a date.
sitting across
Okay.
from someone for the first time?
Okay.
So, okay. First of all, if they talk all about themselves and they don't ask you any questions. So the questions is a big one. And even if you talk about something that you might be passionate about and then they don't ask you a follow-up question, that's one of our big ones.
Yeah. Because then it just shows they're not genuinely interested in getting to know you as a person. So if you're saying, oh gosh, I'm really into psychology at the moment, I'm studying it and I just find it fascinating, you know? And if they're like, oh yeah, my sister's into that, and then they change the subject, it's like, red flag, you know?
Bye.
Yeah.
We're brutal.
This is making us sound like tough critics, but
this is like
it's
a
actually
baseline
been
standard
excellent for us, because I have to say, overall, we've had really good dates on Bumble.
We actually have.
Like, it's almost because we're filtering them out in the first instance. So by the time we go on the date, they're already good people.
They've already ticked a few. You can tell they're a green flag, you know.
So there's a bit of a vetting process.
Yeah, there's definitely a vetting process before you get to the date. I think, you know, on a date as well, I mean, we know all the obvious ones, right? Like rude to wait staff, all of that. But
that's actually a big one, I think.
Yeah, it's a massive one.
I had a best friend who absolutely hated men that wear jewelry. Like if they were wearing any kind of
they're all wearing them these days.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Should have a tough time.
Yeah. One of the other ones is even if they talk ever so slightly badly about their ex, you know, that's such a red flag for us as well.
And we've also learnt that on like the second or third date, if you've met someone that you quite like, we were advised to share something vulnerable to see how they react, because that will very quickly weed out the ones that are just charmers and did very well on the first date, and then as to what their genuine personality is like. So you might share something vulnerable, and again, if they brush over it and move on.
Or make a joke.
You
know, about themselves. If they can't be vulnerable back. You know, that is a red flag. You know, you might be dealing with someone who's a bit avoidant.
This episode is brought to you by Bumble. Shanti, have you ever been on a date and thought, we have got absolutely nothing in common?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's like, babe, I do not want to go rock climbing with you.
No. Thankfully, Bumble's latest interest badge feature can help avoid these kinds of awkward situations.
So whether you're a self-care girly or you're big on bouldering, Bumble lets you add up to 5 interest badges to your profile to help you match with people who like what you like.
Helping you date on your terms.
I love it. So take this as your sign and download the Bumble app on the App Store or Google Play today.
Yeah, and I also think a really interesting test is there was a series of TikToks about like the concept is like microfeminism, because I think if you ask most men, like, are you a feminist?
Oh, you can't do that.
You know,
no.
They'll either a lot of them will just say yes.
Yes, of
or
course.
They'll be, but you don't really know. But it's like, what's your favorite female music artist? Like, do you have, if they don't have, like, when was asked, like, look at who they follow on Instagram, like, ask them who their favorite author is. And if it's all men, it's like, do you engage with women outside your dating life?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Do you see women as people?
I love the new generation coming through. They're so aware of these things. We never knew any of this stuff when we were in our 20s. It just wasn't even on the radar. And now, you know, things like TikTok, that information is out there for girls to kind of suss out guys very quickly. You know, 10 years prior, I didn't even know what a narcissist was, let alone what love bombing was and what it all meant, you know. And you realize there's actually a lot of narcissists out there. Yeah. You don't realize until you really learn to pick up on the cues. Yeah. And then you just think, far out. Like, there's a lot of them out there that we have to weed through.
I think it's because we were all conditioned to, like, be feminine and be soft. And then they were conditioned in such an opposite way. I actually think there was a lot of people who were conditioned into being narcissists whilst we were conditioned to kind of cater to narcissists.
Yeah, it was like a lot of that, you know. But I do love that girls are a little bit more aware of all this stuff now.
It's very cool. Yeah.
So you're both very professional, well-known, successful women. How does that impact dating and who you're looking for in a partner and also who you attract as well?
Well, I think the thing is that when we were talking about going through the weeding process before you even get to the date, I think there's so much you can pick up in text exchange on what their intentions are or how genuine they are about connection, or whether they're just maybe influenced by what they've seen or read about you, or, you know, the industry that you're in. And I think you can weed those people out really quickly. I haven't really, like I said, the guys we have dated on Bumble have been, I've never picked up those red flags in real life. Like, they do seem to genuinely have a real interest in finding a beautiful connection. And that's probably because that's, you know, that tends to be the topic of conversation a little bit in the lead up. So those people who you connect with a little bit more tend to progress to the date stage. But that's just because that's what I'm after, is that, you know, that guy who's emotionally intelligent, isn't afraid to.
We call that high intention dating.
Yeah.
Which means like you know what you want when you're going into it. So as opposed to people that are like, I might be into a relationship, I might be into something casual, I don't really know what I want. Whereas like those high intention people are like, I'm looking for something, I know what it is.
Exactly.
I'm open to it.
And I think anyone who's got that whole not sure what I want yet, I'm like, nah, moving on. Yeah.
I think I've certainly experienced that some men are intimidated by women that have their shit together, like, and that are maybe have had great careers or are independent. And I guess those are the men that, like, immediately, I'm not going to dim who I am just to make them feel better. I'm proud of the fact that I've worked hard in my career and I love what I do. So I'm not going to change that. So immediately I know that we're not going to be a match. But then when I meet a guy who, I don't necessarily want a guy that's like successful or has money, that doesn't interest me at all. But I want to meet someone who's passionate about whatever they do, you know, whether they're a landscape gardener or whether they're a writer or whether they're like a plumber. I don't care what they do as long as they enjoy what they do and have passion about what they do. So I do still think, understandably, probably going back to what you were saying before, Chantelle, is that there are still men out there that, because of the way they've been brought up, they struggle with the fact that when they meet you and you're like, oh, you know, I have had a great career, or I have got all these good things going on in my life. They don't know how to handle that. They're almost intimidated by it. And so I understand where that comes from. But certainly for me, I think, well, I'm not going to change who I am. So
it can cause them to go a little loopy, we've found.
Oh, really?
My sort of theory is that most women within our general age bracket and younger have been raised to believe you can do whatever you want to do. You can be a mom, you can not be a mom, you can stay at home, you can work, you can do kind of whatever it is that what path you choose. Whereas even younger men still grew up in a time where they were told that like a man is a provider.
Yeah.
You know, there isn't really an alternate narrative of, well, you could be a stay-at-home dad. Like maybe it's starting now with like your kids.
I reckon our
with the
kids.
adult men that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
It's not. I found in my life a lot of men aren't in touch with what they bring to the table other than their job and their career and their money.
Yes.
So
Even the emotionally intelligent ones.
They're still like, I need to provide, I need to be able to do all of this. So when you have that as well, it can rattle them a little bit. Not because they're a misogynist or because they don't value women, but because they haven't been taught to think about, am I an emotionally safe person? Am I kind? Am I funny? They don't value those things within themselves.
Yes.
They only value their kind of role as a provider. And then
that's what they wrap their identity up in.
Don't need that. It can rattle them.
And then they go from being emotionally intelligent to just emotional. And then you're like, don't message me anymore.
Because it really then starts to bring out their insecurities.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they don't like who they turn into because of that. And it's like they don't want to feel like that in a relationship, but
and then
they
resent
almost
you
can't help it.
Because they feel like it's you that's bringing that out in them.
Correct. Yeah.
How do we solve this?
Well, unfortunately, I think we're just, like you say, it's ingrained in that the generation, this which I believe is hopefully dying out.
Yeah.
Because I do think our kids' generation it will be the norm that women work. Women are the providers. But unfortunately, we're left with the trail end of, men must provide.
We're cleaning them up. We're doing the best we can.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have been in a sort of short-lived relationship where that did come up, and it didn't matter how many times I said what you said, Jem. I don't care as long as you're just passionate about what you do. I don't care about money. It's almost like they just don't believe you, though.
Yeah.
They don't believe you.
They can't wrap their heads
They
around
think,
cannot understand
you'll find someone more successful and you'll eventually get jack of me.
Yeah,
you know?
And that's when it starts to unravel.
A deep held belief that they have.
Yes.
And they do not believe you when you tell them.
They can't get that out of their head. Yeah, because it's so deeply ingrained.
So interesting.
What are you thinking, Jemma?
Oh, I'm just sitting here thinking, I think I've got that look of shock on my face.
What's happened?
Of like, well, really, how do we solve that?
Well, no, I don't think every single guy out there is like that. And I think the way you solve it is to find an equally rich man.
And just therapy.
Who's also
Like, are you
emotionally
doing
intelligent.
therapy?
Yeah,
do
no,
therapy
that's it.
with a really good therapist. There's so many bad therapists out there that don't know how to lean into like elevating you.
Exactly. But what you said, Jackie, it actually is true. I think that a lot of successful women end up with successful men, not because they're more attracted to a man with money or they sought out a man with money, but because they don't have to deal with the insecurity that came with other relationships that they had. So it's the dynamic is just easier in a relationship with that sort of factor.
So, what Jemma said about I want the man who's passionate about what he does, doesn't matter how much. I was there a year ago. I had that exact same answer. And now the more I date and the more I realize that this is an issue with a lot of men, I've now changed what my expectation is, and I don't know if it's possible unless I have someone who shouldn't be equally successful but does have a little bit of money and success, because I think it just is a balance. It's more equal in the relationship, and
Enough
That seems unfair though, doesn't it?
it really
In
does.
a sense that
It's not our fault, everyone. By the way, it's their fault.
No, it's enough. They need to have enough of their own success that they're not threatened by yours.
That's what it is. It's nothing to do with actually how much money they make, but I do think when they have a little bit of success and money, they're more secure in the relationship that, it would take, I think, to...
Yeah.
It's all about energy. I think as women as well, we were taught so much to give our energy to the man if we're in cis hetero relationships, that we give them all this energy. They glow up. They feel amazing. They look amazing because you're standing next to them. And then, they behave in just such strange or like unfortunate ways. And as soon as you take a step back, you might break up, go your separate ways, and you bring all your energy back to you. You look at them and you go, what did I see there?
Yeah.
I saw my own energy that I put into them there.
Yeah.
That was
that's
me
right.
glowing there.
Yeah.
That's why he looked so good. Why was I even attracted?
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
This is a absolute generalization, so I'll own it in advance. But my experience with men who have then had money is that then I've had to sacrifice in other ways. So a lot of if they do have money, then they might have their own business or be successful, let's call it. But then they're always on their phone, or they're always stressed, or they're always traveling because and so I think that's why I feel like I'm
grim
sitting
out
there in
there.
shock, 'cause I'm like, I actually don't know the answer to
I
this.
don't either.
Like
Because
those
I
guys
want-
have problems too.
I'd rather have someone who's broke but is present and a good listener and not distracted.
Any guy out there listening to this right now is
Sorry.
like, I'm so confused.
Yeah.
What am I
Sorry. It's all fucked.
We don't know either. We don't know either. It turns out there's no perfect solution here.
But do you think that men with children are easier to date than men without children? That's another thing.
Yeah, for me, for sure.
Okay.
That's a no-brainer. That's an easy decision for me because I've noticed that men who do have
more
children
caring?
are more caring. They're more accountable.
Oh, yeah. The type of person.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you meant
logistically.
Logistically it's harder.
Sorry.
Because sometimes I find like I went out on a first date with a guy who had children and I obviously have my daughter, and between the two of us, we weren't going to be able to schedule a date for a month. And because he lived like an hour away, that made it, we couldn't just do a quick and it's not so compatible. It can logistically be harder. But I agree, Jemma, it's easier when they have children in terms of who like the understanding of one another.
I feel like they're a little bit more grounded has been my experience. They know who they are a bit more, and they know how to be selfless. Because they've had to do something.
Yes, that's right.
Would you have any advice that you would give to other mums that are single and dating?
For mums, single and dating, I would say as a mum, your time is limited, and something I think is you don't want to be going out on dates that are wasting your time. And so I think to be sure that you're being effective with your time and dating, I really encourage a FaceTime call because I think, a phone call, I've had phone calls that have been amazing and then I've turned up and it is not just, I don't know what it was, but I didn't pick it up on the phone call. But I think a FaceTime, you can tell so much, and it's such a time saver. Yeah. So that's probably my advice for single mums out there.
I think the only other one for me is that I think as mums, we are used to being self-sacrificers. And so a lot of the time we don't value ourselves very highly. And so my advice would be do the work on yourself to value yourself so that you're attracting the right partner and you're not swiping on partners that you feel like, oh, that's the best I'll get. Yeah. And it's a very different mentality to say like, oh, what do I deserve? Your level of that will shift if your perception of yourself is higher. And so I think for mums, a lot of the time we tend to put ourselves down.
Yeah, because you've probably come out of a relationship that wasn't so good and maybe you felt diminished, devalued in that relationship or marriage for a very long time. And so coming out of that, your self-esteem is probably pretty low at that point, I know many women's, are. And so I think that's a really good point is working on that first. Yeah. Because you tend to, if you enter that dating world too quickly when you don't have a high value of yourself, you're not going after generally the right guy and you really are sort of just walking in there hoping they'll like you as opposed to do I like them.
And that's why we've got a course actually. We're not talking about this today, but we did a course called the Red Flag Project, which we've done with psychologists and we've got it as part of our business for this very reason because we struggled with it so much that we thought it is very challenging. And so for any other mums that are genuinely new to the dating scene, we found it terrifying at first, and that's one of the reasons we did the Red Flag Project and put the course together is to give women the understanding of why they are attracted to certain types of partners and how to break the pattern of repeating possibly what they've gone for in the past.
I once had I was about to say that she was a therapist, but she was a psychic.
We love them too. We love them too. I love my psychic.
Like, hang on a second. Who said, like, when your vibrations are low, you attract other people that are vibrating on a low frequency.
That is so true.
And when you do the work to be vibrating on that sort of higher frequency, that's what you will, you attract what you're putting out.
Absolutely.
And so I think that if you've come out of a difficult relationship that's damaged your confidence, your self-esteem, dating can be really healing, but you need to make sure that you've started healing yourself a bit first and getting that confidence back, because it's great to go on dating apps and, these people are attracted to me, people want to meet me, all those things are very healing, but you also have to make sure that you aren't diving into it before you've really had a chance to let the dust settle on your past relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. If your self-esteem is low and you haven't got that self-love, that it's not, I don't believe it is worth entering the dating world at that point, because you're absolutely right. That's who you will attract.
Yeah.
Which makes me just think it is so incredibly important to have friends that are treating you also as a prize, because that's how you need to be treated across the board by yourself, by a potential partner, and by your friendship groups. And you need to have, you know, a friendship group that has like a very abundant mindset. We don't like living, we're very much like positive, outgoing, abundant people, and we don't like the lack mindset.
No,
That
totally.
scarcity mindset
Yeah.
that I think you mentioned before,
Yes.
Gemma.
Yes.
That is the death sentence
Yes.
for
It is. Yep.
Everything.
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 Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
If you think there's not enough out there for me, that's
what will be.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
do
we're
have
big
this
believers in
question
that.
written down, but you just made me think, like, you know, you are best friends. Your business is about, you know, the friendships. How, you know, your friendship has survived several romantic relationships for each of you. Like, do you see that as actually the sort of foundational relationship in your life?
We've been talking about this recently, and it's funny how we spend all this time trying to search for your soulmate, and we now say that we've found our soulmate. And also in the past, maybe I certainly know I've been guilty of this, of letting friendships kind of slide a bit when I've been in a relationship and not giving them the attention and nurturing that they deserve. And I will never, ever do that again.
Yeah, and I can't imagine going on a holiday no matter what soulmate I find in the future and having as much fun with him as what I do with you. So I feel like we have the best time together, and you know, that's the stuff you want to value and nurture. And if a guy comes along, then so be it. Great.
We've got one final question that we can't not ask Jackie.
Yeah.
Fashion.
That's not the question I've been asked about the most lately, so go ahead.
We were talking about it over the past few days, and
I'm
there
in
are
a
like Facebook groups about your fashion sense.
That's just like, please ID this outfit of Jackie. Please ID. Where did her boots get? Where did her boot? Like, it's just like you're wearing a pair of plain black boots, and they're like, where did she get her boots from? Where is this from?
That's
Where
so
is that
cool.
from?
I love
and then all
that.
these other people being like, I found it.
Oh, wow, that's so lovely.
We can't not ask, does it play an important role in
Where does
dating
it come
for you?
from?
Like, where does it come from? Does it make you feel more confident? And Jem, I want your opinion on this too. You're obviously very fashionable as well.
I've always loved fashion. I like that I can play with lots of different looks. And I don't know, it's just this sort of, it does, I think fashion can make you feel really good. And for me, I like to sometimes go really feminine and do the Zimmermann dress, or I'll go through periods of just, you know, the big cargos, T-shirts. It's so flattering that people have been saying that online. And I think, you know, with dating as well, you know, how we all the girls out there are like, what am I going to wear? And we get each other's advice on that. I think it's just fun. Like it's this beautiful light relief in your life where it does, you know, we get excited about an outfit that we feel looks good on us.
Yeah, well, it's working.
Well, thank you.
Can I just say there's lots of packages being delivered to the house, just so you know, when I'm at Jackie's
Do you
house,
ever
the
go through them
doorbell's always
first?
ding dong,
it's always
ding dong.
going.
Yeah,
I know.
But you've
gone
ordered
big
or
on
been
online.
gifted?
Ordered.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the most embarrassing thing about living in New York is having a doorman and having to go down there in the morning and collect my parcels. And I'm like, these men know exactly how much I'm shopping, and I'm so mortified.
The dopamine hits. What about you, babe?
I'm probably not as invested in fashion because I just don't have the time, like having young children and being a single mum and work. And so I probably don't put as much effort in as Jack does. And I wish I did, because I love that you're so kind of creative, you know, and that you'll take risks with fashion. But I do care about how it makes me feel. And I noticed that more than ever during COVID, because I noticed that if I actually got up in the morning and put on a nice outfit, it really lifted my mood.
Yeah.
So I am aware of the fact that when I put in a bit of effort and I actually don't just stay in my sweats all day, that it does have a direct correlation. So I'm quite feminine probably in my
you
style.
are.
And
That's nice. I like it.
Love it.
Anyway, thank you both so much
for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
What a joy.
What a great
so
chat.
fun.
Yeah.
Thank you. Shanti, we've come to the DM section, our favourite part.
I love this. I'm excited to hear what we've
One
got.
from Mia.
What are you supposed to wear on a first date? I know it depends on where you're going, but let's just say it's a normal dinner and drinks date. Am I supposed to wear a pop of red? Am I supposed to look like I put a lot of effort in. I have a friend with a go-to first date outfit, but is that just weird to wear the same thing?
Oh, great question.
I think this question, do you think it's assuming that it's like a drinks and dinner date?
I think it depends on what you're doing.
Because if it depends on where you're going, like you want to dress in a way that is reflective of you. So if you don't normally dress up, don't bring out your best clothes to try and impress. And if you normally, are all guns blazing, like don't tone it down just for what you think you might be perceived as on a date.
Yeah. So she said, let's just say it's a normal dinner and drinks date. I think from our perspective, we're all about like letting your personal, I guess your individualism shine and your confidence shine. And you need to kind of go with something that makes you feel like, yeah, I look fucking great tonight.
And that you feel like yourself in and that you feel comfortable in. And also like, you might have like a super hot outfit, but you don't want to be like constantly adjusting your straps or like pulling your skirt down. Like if it's going to be distracting, like you have to feel comfortable but sexy.
Yeah.
And so if you've got one outfit and that's your go-to for every first date, I think that's fine.
Totally. I think also like if you're like me and you're like a sneaker, like a kicks kind of girl, like I like wearing like feminine things with my sneakers. That's what I'm going to stick with on a date. I'm not going to kind of pivot because I don't want to feel not like myself.
Yeah. My go-to first date outfit's a leopard print dress.
Always, and you look always so good in it.
One
I
of
wish
the
I could
three
rock
that
it
I
like you do.
Well, that's what we would tell you to do, Mia. Find your first date outfit and just stick with it if it works for you.
Slay away, girl.
Good luck. Well, what a fun episode with Jackie and Jemma.
I love
was
them.
Just the best. If you want to follow them, you can go to Her Best Life podcast and follow at Besties AU.
And if you like us,
go to at Bumble_Australia. Send us a message. Give us some feedback.
give us some really good feedback.
5 stars
and a nice
only.
review. Tap the bell, follow us, and we will see you next week.
Bye.